My name is Elena. I'm 64 years old, and my own daughter accidentally sent me a voice message that was meant for her husband. What I heard about myself in that audio made me leave the very next morning with a plan she would never see coming. Hey guys, before we dive in, consider hitting the subscribe button to join the community, because I don't want you missing out on the next videos we have in store. Now back to the story. Miguel, I can't stand having my mother in this house anymore. I heard my daughter Sophia's voice with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. She's constantly in our business. She interferes with everything. And on top of that, we're already hemorrhaging money taking care of her. I've been researching some affordable facilities. I found one that only costs $750 a month. In that moment, I felt as if the earth had cracked open beneath me. This was the same daughter for whom I had scrubbed floors in office buildings until my knees ached. The same one for whom I paid for university by pawning even my wedding ring. The same one who sobbed in my arms when Miguel abandoned her at the altar the first time, and I drained my retirement fund to convince him to return. But the audio continued, and what came next was even more devastating. Also, I've already examined the property documents. It's in her name, but I discovered a way to transfer it to us without her knowing. My cousin Diana, who works at the registrar's office, is going to assist me. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the phone. My own daughter was scheming to steal my house, the only asset I possessed in this world, the house I built room by room with the earnings from my hands, laboring 14 hours a day for 25 years. But what wounded me most was hearing her laughter at the end of the message. In 6 weeks, Mama will be in the facility and we'll own everything. We can finally live peacefully without that bitter old woman dictating our lives. If you have ever experienced the deepest betrayal from someone you cherish, you'll understand exactly what I felt in that moment. But what my daughter Sophia didn't realize is that her mother isn't as foolish as she believes. And after 64 years in this world, I've discovered that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is with the same cleverness that's used against you. I couldn't rest for even a moment that night. At sunrise, I rose with a resolve I hadn't experienced in years. I dressed in my finest navy blue dress, collected all my vital papers, and departed the house with confidence in my step, and a strategy that would transform everything forever. To comprehend why what I heard wounded me so deeply, I need to share how I became the woman I am today, and how my relationship with Sophia became the center of my existence. I was raised in a household where affection was demonstrated through the sacrifices you made for others. My mother, may her soul rest in peace, worked as a tailor from dawn until late evening to support me and my 2 brothers. We never had abundance, but we always had love, dignity, and firm principles. Elena, my mother would tell me while teaching me to embroider, in this life, the only thing that truly matters is family. And for family, you give everything until your last breath. When I became pregnant with Sophia at 19, her father vanished without a trace. One evening, he was there, promising we would marry, and the next dawn, he was gone. His family turned me away when I went searching for him, telling me their son wouldn't destroy his future for some unknown girl. That's when my mother revealed her true character. That child is going to have everything we lacked, she told me, embracing me and wiping away my tears. We'll raise her together, so she can become a remarkable woman. My mother sold her only silver necklace, the sole piece of jewelry she owned, to purchase everything I needed for the baby. When Sophia was born, it was as if a star had descended. She was the most gorgeous infant I had ever seen, with her bright eyes and a smile that illuminated the entire room. My mother and I alternated caring for her while I worked. I began cleaning offices at 20, earning barely $25 a day, but every dollar I made was for her. I clearly remember the first day I brought Sophia to preschool. We walked because we couldn't afford the bus fare, but she wore her uniform perfectly pressed and her shoes polished. The other mothers arrived in luxury vehicles, dressed in designer clothing, and I felt insignificant in my mended dress and with my rough hands. But when Sophia kissed my forehead and said, "Thank you, Mama, you're the greatest in the world," I knew it was all worthwhile. The years flowed by, and my schedule was always identical. Rise at 4:30 in the morning, prepare breakfast for Sophia, escort her to school, work cleaning 4 different offices until 7 in the evening, collect her, assist her with studies, and tuck her into bed with a fairy tale. On weekends, I took in sewing to earn additional income, all so she could have a superior life than mine. My mother died when Sylvia was 9, but before she departed, she made me a vow I will never forget. Elena, that child is your greatest gift. Provide her with education, give her love, and she will care for you when you're elderly. Our family's heart is pure. She won't disappoint you." Those words sustained me, even when the days were so challenging that I wanted to surrender. When Sylvia turned 16, I worked overtime for half a year to give her the celebration she deserved. I spent $4,000 on that party, money I had been saving to repair our crumbling front steps. But witnessing the joy on her face that evening, watching her glow in her silver gown as she danced, was invaluable. "Mama, I don't understand how you provide me with so much when you have so little," she told me that night while embracing me. "When I'm grown, I'm going to return all this to you, multiplied by 1,000. Throughout secondary school, Sylvia was an outstanding student. She achieved the highest marks in her class, participated in drama productions, and all the instructors told me she had a brilliant future awaiting her. But supporting those studies wasn't inexpensive. Textbooks, uniforms, educational trips, it all required money I didn't possess. I began cleaning a fifth office on Saturdays, my only free day, just to afford it all. When it was time to enroll her in university, the tuition was $18,000 annually. I was only earning $450 monthly cleaning offices. I calculated the numbers, and it seemed impossible. But a mother accomplishes the impossible for her children. I secured a loan using my house as security. I sold the only bracelet her father had given me before he disappeared. And I even sold my mother's embroidery supplies. "My daughter," I told Sylvia the day I accompanied her to register, "I couldn't attend university, but you are going to be a professional. You'll have a degree. You'll work in an office with climate control, and you'll never have to clean other people's buildings like your mother." That day, I wept with joy watching my daughter sign the registration forms for her marketing degree. For all 4 years of university, I continued working tirelessly to cover all her expenses. Sylvia needed money for textbooks, for assignments, to socialize with her classmates, for suitable attire for presentations. I provided her with everything, even if it meant I had to survive on rice and beans for an entire week to economize. When she graduated, it was the proudest day of my existence. Seeing my daughter walk across the platform in her cap and gown, hearing them announce her name, and the applause from the audience made all my sacrifices seem worthwhile. After the ceremony, she embraced me, weeping, and said, "Mama, this achievement belongs to both of us. I never would have reached this point without you. I promise you that now that I'm a professional, you will never have to struggle again." A year later, Sylvia met Miguel at her workplace. Initially, I was overjoyed because I saw her so content and loved. Miguel appeared to be a decent man. He had steady employment as a coordinator at a warehouse, and he treated my daughter well. When he formally requested her hand, I cried with emotion, believing that Sylvia would finally have the stable family I could never provide her. But organizing the wedding required another enormous financial sacrifice. Sylvia desired an elegant celebration like those in bridal magazines. She said, "The reception hall cost $9,500, the gown $2,500, the band $900, the flowers $700. In total, I spent $12,000 on that wedding. Money I obtained by securing another loan and selling the remainder of my jewelry." The early years of their marriage were wonderful. Sylvia and Miguel would visit me every Sunday. We would dine together, and she always contributed to the household expenses. "Mama, now that I'm employed, I want to care for you the way you cared for me," she would say, while giving me money for groceries. I finally felt that my sacrifices had been rewarded, that I had a grateful daughter who genuinely loved me. But everything shifted 2 years ago, when Miguel lost his position, and they began experiencing financial difficulties. They started constantly requesting money from me, and as always, I couldn't refuse. First, it was $1,200 for monthly bills, then $2,800 for a deposit on a newer car, then $3,500 to settle credit card obligations. Everything began to transform subtly after I lent them that $3,500 for their debts. At first, there were minor details that I rationalized, thinking they resulted from the pressure of their financial troubles. But now, after hearing that message, I realize it wasn't pressure. It was the start of a calculated scheme to remove me from their lives. The first indication was when they ceased their Sunday visits. "Mama, we're so overwhelmed with Miguel's new position," Sylvia would tell me over the phone. "You understand how it is. We need to demonstrate we're dependable." I understood, or at least I believed I did. After all, it was natural for a young couple to focus on advancing their careers. But then the excuses for not returning my calls began. I would call in the mornings, and Sylvia would say, "Mama, I'm in a crucial meeting. I'll call you back." I'd call in the afternoons. "Oh, Mama, I'm at the market doing our weekly shopping." At night, "Mama, it's too late. We're having dinner. We'll speak tomorrow." That tomorrow never arrived. And when we finally did speak, the conversation barely lasted 3 minutes. Then came the painful comments disguised as concern. "Mama, Miguel says he's observed you've been very absent-minded lately," she told me one day during one of our infrequent phone calls. "Are you certain you can live alone in that large house? At your age, anything could occur." I laughed nervously, thinking they were overreacting, but the seed of uncertainty had been planted. One afternoon, I decided to visit them unexpectedly, bringing them the coconut cake that Miguel adored. When I knocked on the door, I heard conversation and laughter inside, but it took them nearly 10 minutes to answer. "Oh, Mama, what a surprise," Sylvia said with a strained smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We were just organizing some work documents." Inside was her cousin, Diana, the one who worked at the registrar's office with a stack of papers spread across the dining table. When they saw me enter, Diana quickly collected all the documents and placed them in a briefcase. "Hello, Aunt Elena," she greeted me with that artificial smile she had always possessed. "I was just helping Sylvia with some of Miguel's insurance paperwork, but I managed to glimpse my name on one of those documents before Diana concealed it." "Why do you need papers with my name on them?" I asked with genuine curiosity. Sylvia and Diana exchanged a glance that I couldn't interpret at the time, but which I now understand completely. "It's just to update the beneficiaries on the policy, Mama," Sylvia told me. "You know, in case something happens to us, you're our only family." That explanation reassured me then, but later I began to notice that whenever I mentioned the subject, Sylvia would quickly divert the conversation. "Mama, why don't you tell me about your roses?" she would say. "Oh, Mama, did you see the new series that's on Channel 7? It was then that the deliberate neglect started. They would invite me to lunch, and when I arrived at the restaurant, they weren't there. "Oh, Mama, we forgot to tell you we had to cancel," they would say later. "Miguel had a work emergency." This occurred 4 times in 3 months. The 5th time it happened, I was left sitting alone in that restaurant for an hour and a half, feeling like a fool. While other families around me enjoyed their meals together, they also began excluding me from significant family occasions. I discovered by accident, while talking to my neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, that they had hosted a barbecue to celebrate Miguel's promotion. "How odd you weren't there, Elena," Mrs. Carmen told me. "I saw them purchasing food for about 15 people at the market." When I asked Sylvia why I hadn't been invited, she said, "Oh, Mama, it was a very casual gathering. We didn't want to trouble you." But the final straw was when they decided to move into my house temporarily. "Mama, they're going to renovate our apartment and we need to stay with you for about 6 weeks, Sylvia told me. "Besides, this way we can spend more time together. Don't you think it's perfect?" I was delighted to have them near again. I thought we would finally restore the closeness we had lost. However, from the very first day they arrived, things became different in my own home. Miguel began criticizing everything, that my television was too outdated, that the internet was too slow, that the shower lacked adequate water pressure. "Aunt, this house requires extensive repairs," he would say. "At your age, maintaining such a large property must be very challenging." Sylvia started rearranging my belongings without permission. "Mama, these dishes are too old. I'm going to replace them with modern ones," she would say. "And these clothes you have in the wardrobe are so outdated. We should donate them." Gradually, my house ceased feeling like my house. It was as if I were a visitor in my own home. Then the hushed conversations began, which would halt when I entered the room. I would see them speaking in the kitchen, and when I appeared, they would immediately shift the topic to something insignificant, like the weather or current events. "What were you discussing?" I would ask them. "Nothing important, Mama," Sylvia would respond, "just about the utility bills." One evening, I overheard Miguel talking on the phone in the backyard. "Yes, we're already residing here. No, she doesn't suspect anything. Diana says she can have all the paperwork ready in 3 more weeks." When I went outside to ask him who he was speaking with, he said it was his supervisor about a work assignment. They also began subtly managing my finances. "Mama, let me assist you with the electricity and gas bills," Sylvia would say. "You're too old to be concerned about these matters." At first, I thought it was a thoughtful gesture, but then I realized she was examining all my bank records. "Mama, why do you need so much cash?" she would ask me when she noticed I had withdrawn $150 for my personal needs. The most agonizing thing was observing how they discussed me when they thought I wasn't present. One afternoon, I was watering the plants in the garden when I heard Miguel tell someone on the phone, "My mother-in-law is becoming more difficult to manage. She's growing very obstinate with age." Sylvia laughed in the background and added, "It's true. Recently, she forgets things and becomes very challenging when we try to help her." But what truly opened my eyes was when they started making remarks about my mental health in front of others. My longtime friend, Mrs. Victoria, came to visit, and Sylvia told her, "Oh, Victoria, my mama has been so disoriented lately. Yesterday, she wanted to go for a walk at midnight because she thought it was afternoon." That was a complete fabrication. I had never done such a thing, but I witnessed how Victoria looked at me with sympathy and worry. "Oh, Elena, it's fortunate you have Sylvia to look after you," she said. In that moment, I felt profound anger, but also immense sorrow, realizing that my own daughter was constructing a false story about my mental condition. Unusual visitors began arriving at my house, physicians who were supposedly there to check my heart rate, social workers who wanted to assess my living situation, and even a man who introduced himself as an elderly care consultant. They all came when Sylvia arranged them, but they never asked if I wanted those visits. During one of those evaluations, I heard the doctor speaking with Sylvia in the living room. "Ma'am, your mother appears to be physically healthy, but I'm going to note in the report that she displays signs of minor age-related disorientation." I was listening from the kitchen, completely alert and aware, while this man documented lies about my mental state. The tension in the house became insufferable. Every day I felt more pressure, more control over my life, more hurtful comments disguised as care. "Mama, you shouldn't drive anymore," Miguel told me one day. "At your age, it's too risky." "Mama, it's better if you don't go shopping alone anymore," Sylvia added. "We can do it for you." Little by little, they were removing my independence, my autonomy, my dignity. And the most painful part was that they did it with smiles on their faces, telling me that it was all for my own benefit, that they loved me so much and only wanted to protect me. The moment that changed everything forever came that Wednesday afternoon, when my world collapsed with a simple technological mistake that revealed the cruelest truth I had experienced in my 64 years. That day had been particularly trying. Sylvia and Miguel had left early, saying they were going to handle some business matters, but I knew something was amiss. I had seen them whispering all morning, and when I asked what was happening, they responded with those fake smiles I had learned to recognize. "It's nothing, Mama," Sylvia would say, "just tedious stuff about Miguel's work." I was left alone in the house, feeling that weight in my chest that had been growing for the past few weeks. The house that used to be my sanctuary now felt like a cage. Everything had changed since they had come to stay temporarily. My routines, my spaces, even my way of living had been modified to accommodate their needs and their secret plans. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, I was preparing mint tea to calm my anxiety when I heard the notification sound on my phone. It was a voice message from Sylvia. At first, I thought she was informing me they would be delayed, or perhaps asking me to prepare something special for dinner. How foolish I was to think my daughter still considered me important enough to share her plans with. I pressed the play button without imagining that in the next 4 minutes, my entire existence would be shattered. "Miguel, I can't stand having my mother in this house anymore." Sylvia's voice began with a tone of frustration she had never used with me directly. My heart ceased beating. Those words, spoken with such disdain, were like poisoned arrows piercing my soul. This was not the loving daughter who would embrace me and say, "I love you, Mama," every time she departed. She's a complete nuisance, Miguel. She interferes with everything we do, always questioning, always present. And on top of that, we're already hemorrhaging money on her. I've been researching some affordable facilities. I found one on the outskirts that only costs $750 a month. With what we save, we can finally renovate the bathroom we want so badly, and even purchase new appliances for the kitchen. Every word was like a physical assault. My own daughter, the child to whom I had devoted my entire life, was discussing me as if I were a piece of broken furniture that needed to be discarded. The $750 the facility would cost was exactly what I had been giving them monthly for their personal expenses, money that came from my pension and my modest savings. But the audio continued, and what came next completely destroyed me. Also, I've already examined all the property papers. It's in her name, but Diana already explained how we can transfer it to our name without her realizing. It's going to be about $600 in bribes and fees, but it's worth it. My cousin already has experience with these kinds of arrangements. In that moment, I understood everything. Diana's casual visits with her briefcases full of documents, the conversations that stopped when I appeared, the specialists who had come to evaluate my house and my mental state. It had all been part of a meticulously orchestrated plan to have me declared incompetent and steal my property. My house. The house I had built, room by room, laboring 14 hours a day for 25 years. The house where I had raised Sylvia, where we had celebrated her birthdays, where I had wept when she graduated from university, where I had dreamed that one day my grandchildren would play. That house, which was worth approximately $520,000 and represented all my assets, all my future, all my security. I already spoke with the administrator of the Golden Years facility. Sophia's voice continued with a coldness that pierced my heart. I explained the situation. I told him that my mother has early-stage Alzheimer's and that it's unsafe for her to live alone. He was very sympathetic. He says they encounter cases like this frequently. I've already completed all the preliminary intake forms. My legs shook so violently I had to lower myself onto the kitchen floor. My own daughter had lied to a stranger about my mental condition. She had signed papers to have me institutionalized without my knowledge, and she was doing it with the same casualness with which one plans a weekend getaway. "The strategy is flawless, darling," she continued, addressing Miguel. "Next Thursday, we're going to tell her she has a routine doctor's appointment. We'll drive her to the facility, register her, and by the time she understands what's happening, she'll already be inside, and we'll have legal custody. Diana says that with the medical reports we obtained, which state she has cognitive impairment, it will be very simple to prove she can't make decisions independently." Those fabricated medical reports they had constructed with the assistance of dishonest physicians, those assessments I had permitted, believing they were for my wellness, it had all been a charade to build a case that would justify stripping away my freedom and my rights. Miguel could be heard in the background, chuckling and making remarks that I couldn't hear distinctly, but his tone of agreement was unmistakable. The man I had welcomed into my family, whom I had supported financially, whom I had treated like a son, was actively participating in the scheme to ruin my life. "The most beautiful part of all," Sophia continued with a laugh that shattered my heart, "is that she'll never suspect anything. She believes we're the perfect children who cherish her. She still says, 'Thank you for caring for me, sweetheart,' when I bring her breakfast in bed. If she only knew that I'm serving her that breakfast to keep her docile while I prepare her living burial." In that moment, something inside me shattered beyond repair. It wasn't just the betrayal. It wasn't just the anguish of discovering that my daughter despised me. It was the humiliation of realizing that while I blessed her every evening in my prayers, thanking God for giving me such a wonderful daughter, she was calculating how many days remained until she could dispose of me. With the $520,000 the house is worth, we can eliminate all our credit card debt, the auto loan, and we'll even have enough remaining to go to Japan on vacation like we've always dreamed, Sophia continued. And the finest part is, we won't have to pretend to love her anymore. No more Sundays pretending we enjoy her terrible cooking. No more listening to her repetitive stories from when she was young. Every word was another wound. My cooking, which I prepared with such affection every Sunday, hoping they would come to visit. My stories, which I shared because I wanted to pass on the precious memories of my youth with them and teach them about our family. Everything I thought was love and connection was for them a burden they had to tolerate. In 6 weeks, Mama will be in the facility and will own everything, Sylvia concluded. We can finally live peacefully without that bitter old woman controlling us. Besides, the life insurance she has is in our name, so if something happens to her at the facility, God forgive me for saying this, it wouldn't be such a tragedy. Those final words chilled my blood. Not only did they want to steal my house and my freedom, but they had coldly calculated that my death would also benefit them. They had transformed their own mother into an investment, hoping to profit from both my life and my death. The message ended with laughter and comments about which restaurant to choose for dinner that evening, as if they had just planned a holiday instead of the complete destruction of the life of the woman who had loved them more than anything in the world. I remained seated on my kitchen floor for an unknown amount of time, with the phone still in my hand, replaying the message repeatedly, hoping I had misheard, hoping it was a nightmare from which I would awaken. But each time I listened, the reality became more brutal, more agonizing, more final. That night I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything but wander around my house, examining every object, every photograph, every memory I had created, thinking that one day I would lovingly pass it on to my daughter. Now, I knew that all of it was going to be stolen, sold or discarded without any respect for the memories it represented. But as I walked through my house in the darkness of that dawn, something began to shift inside me. The sadness and pain started to transform into something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pure, cold resolve. My daughter thought I was a naive old woman who was easy to manipulate, but she had completely misjudged the woman who had raised her. At sunrise, I rose with a mental clarity I hadn't experienced in months. I put on my most elegant navy blue suit, the one I reserved for special occasions. I took my purse with all my important documents and left the house before Sylvia and Miguel awakened. I had a plan, and they had no idea what was approaching. That morning, I awakened at exactly 5:15, as if my body knew it was the most crucial day of my life. All night long, I had been planning every move, every word, every detail of what I was going to do. I was no longer the naive Elena who had allowed her own daughter to manipulate her for months. Today, I was going to show Sylvia that she had completely misjudged the woman who had raised her. I put on my navy blue dress suit, the same one I had worn to her university graduation. I applied my makeup carefully, styled my hair elegantly, and put on the silver earrings my mother had left me. I wanted to look like the strong, dignified woman I was, not the vulnerable victim they thought I was. Before I left, I wrote a note and left it on the kitchen table. Left early to handle some personal business. Will be back this afternoon. Love, Mom. I didn't provide them any more details because they didn't deserve them. For months, they had made decisions about my life without consulting me. Now it was my turn to act without giving them an explanation. My first stop was the bank. I arrived exactly when they opened at 8:30 in the morning. "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez," said Patricia, the manager who had known me for 12 years. "How can we assist you today?" "Patricia, I need to review all the transactions in my account for the last 4 months, and I want to change all my beneficiaries," I told her with a firmness that surprised her. "I also need you to explain to me if anyone has tried to access information about my accounts without my permission." Patricia frowned as she reviewed my file on the computer. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I have several inquiries about your account registered here, made by your daughter, Sylvia. She presented a letter signed by you authorizing her to review your bank statements to help you with your finances." My blood boiled. "Patricia, I never signed that letter. Can you show me that document?" When I saw the supposed authorization, I immediately recognized that the signature had been forged. It was similar to mine, but I had never written my name with that particular flourish. "This is a forgery," I told her, showing her my ID so she could compare the signatures. "My daughter has been fraudulently accessing my bank information. I need you to immediately cancel any authorization she has and put a security alert on my account." Patricia turned pale as she realized the seriousness of the situation. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is very serious. We are going to cancel all unauthorized access immediately, and I recommend that you file a fraud report. That's exactly what I'm going to do, I replied. But first, I need to protect my assets. I want to transfer all my funds to a new account that only I can manage, and I want to change the beneficiary of my life insurance. For the next hour, Patricia helped me secure all my finances. I transferred my $9,200 in savings to a completely new account. I changed all the passwords and named a charitable foundation for elderly women as the beneficiary of my life insurance. Sylvia was no longer going to see a single cent of my money. My second stop was the registrar's office, where Diana, Sylvia's accomplice cousin, worked. I arrived without warning with a small recorder hidden in my purse. "Good morning, Diana," I said with a sweet smile. "I've come to check the status of my property. My daughter told me you had been helping her with some paperwork." Diana immediately became nervous. "Oh, Aunt Elena, what are you doing here? Sylvia didn't tell me you were coming." Her hands trembled as she tried to quickly close some documents she had on her desk. "Don't worry, Diana," I said, maintaining my casual tone. "I just want to better understand this insurance paperwork my daughter is handling. Could you explain exactly what documents you need with my name on them?" Diana started to perspire. "Well, Aunt, it's just routine updates for the registry." Her voice cracked when she realized I knew more than I was letting on. "Diana," I said, leaning forward, "I know exactly what you and my daughter have been planning. I know about the fake documents. I know about the plan to take my house. And I know you've been helping her forge papers using your position here." I showed her my phone with the audio I had recorded the day before. "I have proof of everything." Diana slumped in her chair. "Aunt Elena, I didn't want to do it, but Sylvia told me that you couldn't take care of yourself anymore, that it was for your own good. It was for money, Diana. Don't pretend it was for my own good," I told her firmly. "Now you have two options. Either you help me reverse everything you've done, or I go straight to your supervisor and show them the evidence that you've been forging official documents." Diana started to cry. "Please, Aunt, I can't lose my job. I have 2 children to support." Between tears, she explained the entire process to me, how they had forged my signature on several documents, how they had created fake medical reports, and how they planned to use all that to have me declared incompetent and transfer my property. "All right, Diana," I said after she had confessed everything. "You're going to help me fix this, and then you're going to look for another job. But if you help me now, I won't press criminal charges against you." Over the next 2 hours, Diana helped me invalidate all the fraudulent documents they had created. She also gave me copies of everything as evidence, including the fake medical reports and the property transfer documents they had prepared. My third stop was with attorney Benjamin Torres, the most respected lawyer in the city. "Attorney Torres," I said, showing him all the evidence I had collected, "I need your help to stop a fraud and protect my rights." Attorney Torres reviewed all the documents with professional attention. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is a very serious case of family fraud. We have more than enough evidence to press criminal charges, but tell me, what exactly do you want to achieve?" "I want justice, attorney," I replied, "but most of all, I want my daughter to learn that actions have consequences. For 64 years, I have been too good, too generous, too understanding. It's time for someone to defend me, even if I have to do it myself." The attorney smiled with admiration. "Mrs. Rodriguez, we are going to prepare a legal strategy that protects all your rights and sends a very clear message about the consequences of trying to defraud a senior citizen." For the next few hours, we prepared a civil lawsuit for fraud, falsification of documents, and attempted illegal appropriation. We also prepared a criminal complaint against Sylvia, Miguel, and Diana. The attorney explained that I had a solid case and that it was very likely I would recover all the damages caused. By the end of the afternoon, I returned home feeling completely different. I was no longer the vulnerable victim who had left that morning. I was a woman who had taken full control of her life and was ready to face the consequences of years of allowing others to abuse her kindness. When I arrived, Sylvia and Miguel were in the living room watching television, acting as if nothing had happened. "Hi, Mama," Sylvia said with that fake smile that I had already learned to recognize. "How did your errands go?" "Very well, sweetheart," I replied calmly. I took care of exactly what I needed to. I sat in my favorite armchair and looked at them intently. "By the way, some people are coming to visit us tomorrow. I hope you're here to receive them." "What people, Mama?" Miguel asked with curiosity. "Oh, you'll see," I told them with a mysterious smile. "They are people who are going to help us clarify some important things about our family's future." That night, we had dinner in silence. I knew exactly what was going to happen the next day, but they had no idea of the storm that was coming. For the first time in months, I slept soundly with the peace of mind that justice was on its way. The next day, at exactly 10:30 in the morning, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, getting up quickly before Sylvia or Miguel could move. At the door were attorney Benjamin Torres, 2 police officers, and a public notary. "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez," the attorney said. "We've come to execute the orders we discussed yesterday." Sylvia and Miguel got up from the sofa with looks of complete confusion. "Mama, what's going on?" Sylvia asked. "Who are these people?" "Sit down," I told them, with an authority they had never heard in my voice. "It's time for you to know the truth." Attorney Torres cleared his throat and began to speak. "Miss Sylvia and Mr. Miguel, I am here on behalf of Mrs. Elena to inform you that we have discovered irrefutable evidence of fraud, falsification of documents, and conspiracy to commit illegal appropriation against her." Sylvia and Miguel's faces turned completely white. "What are you talking about?" Sylvia stammered. "We would never do anything like that." "Sylvia," I said, taking out my phone, "do you want me to play for everyone the voice message you accidentally sent me yesterday?" In that moment, I saw all the blood drain from my daughter's face. Her eyes filled with pure panic as she realized that her perfect plan had been discovered because of her own negligence. The moment of truth had arrived, and there was no turning back. The silence in my living room was deafening. Sylvia and Miguel were petrified, staring at me as if they had seen a ghost. For all these months, they had believed they had total control of the situation, that I was a helpless old woman they could manipulate at will. Now they realized that they had completely underestimated the woman who had raised them. "Attorney Torres," I said, keeping my voice firm and serene, "please proceed with the presentation of the evidence." The attorney opened his briefcase and took out a thick folder full of documents. "Miss Sylvia and Mr. Miguel, we have in our possession irrefutable evidence of the crimes you have committed against Mrs. Elena." He placed the first documents on the coffee table. "Let's start with the forgeries." He showed Sylvia the document she had signed at the bank, authorizing herself to access my accounts. "This is her authentic signature," he said, pointing to my ID. "And this is the forged signature that you presented at the bank." The differences were obvious when seen side by side. I don't know what you're talking about," Sylvia stammered, but her voice was trembling so much that it was clear she was lying. "Mama asked me to help her with her accounts because she was forgetting to pay the bills." "Sylvia," I said with a calm that even surprised me, "stop lying. There's no escape now." I took out my phone and pressed the play button. My own daughter's voice filled the room. "Miguel, I can't stand having my mother in this house anymore. She's a complete nuisance. She interferes with everything we do." I watched Sylvia's face completely fall apart as she listened to her own words. Miguel tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were visibly shaking. Neither of them had realized that the message had been sent to my phone by mistake. "I've been researching some affordable facilities. I found one on the outskirts that only costs $750 a month." "Turn that off!" Sylvia screamed, lunging for my phone, but one of the officers immediately stopped her. "That's private. You have no right to listen to my conversations." "Relax, sweetheart," I told her with a cold smile. "This is just getting started. Sit down and listen to everything you planned for your mother." The audio continued to play. "Diana already explained how we can transfer the house to our name without her realizing. It's going to be about $600 in bribes and fees, but it's worth it." Miguel stood up abruptly. "This is a setup," he said, pointing at the attorney. "You're manipulating her to accuse us of things we didn't do." Attorney Torres smiled professionally. "Mr. Miguel, we haven't even gotten to the most interesting part yet." He took another document from the folder. "This is the complete and signed confession of Diana Herrera, cousin of Miss Sylvia, who works at the registrar's office. My eyes met Sophia's, and I saw her realize that Diana had betrayed her. In this confession, the attorney continued, Diana details exactly how you pressured her to forge official documents, how you created fraudulent medical reports, and how you planned to use these documents to declare her mentally incompetent. Diana is a liar, Sophia screamed desperately. She made all that up to save her own skin. Oh, really, sweetheart? I asked, taking out my small recorder, because I also have the complete conversation I had with Diana yesterday in her office recorded. I pressed the play button, and Diana's voice, confessing everything in tears, filled the room. Sophia told me that you couldn't take care of yourself anymore. She showed me how to forge your signature. She promised me she would pay me $2,500 once she had the house. Miguel sank into the sofa with his hands on his head. This is a nightmare, he mumbled. Everything got out of control. No, Miguel, I said firmly. This is justice. What was a nightmare was living in my own house, feeling like a prisoner, listening to you talk about me as if I were a nuisance, watching you plan to steal everything I've worked for in my life. Attorney Torres continued with the presentation of evidence. We also have the fraudulent medical reports that you commissioned. He showed the documents where corrupt doctors had written that I had dementia and was incapable of making decisions for myself. Mrs. Elena voluntarily underwent a full psychological evaluation yesterday, conducted by Dr. Carmen Valdez, a geriatric specialist at Metropolitan Hospital. He pulled out the official report. The results show that Mrs. Elena is in perfect mental condition, with a clarity and reasoning ability superior to the average for her age. This proves that all the previous reports were fabricated. Sophia started to cry, but they weren't tears of repentance, but of desperation at seeing her plan completely fall apart. Mama, please, she pleaded with me. We just wanted to take care of you. We thought it would be better for you to be in a place where they would attend to you professionally. Take care of me? I asked with a bitter laugh. By stealing my house, lying about my mental health, planning to institutionalize me against my will? I stood up and walked toward her. Sweetheart, in that message, you also said you hoped I would die soon so you could collect my life insurance. I never said that, Sophia screamed. I replayed that specific part of the audio. Besides, the life insurance she has is in our name, so if something happens to her at the facility, God forgive me for saying this, it wouldn't be such a tragedy. The silence that followed was devastating. Even the police officers exchanged looks of disgust upon hearing a daughter talk about her mother's death as a financial opportunity. But there's more, the attorney said, taking out another folder. We also discovered that for the last 4 months, Miss Sophia has been withdrawing money from her mother's accounts without authorization, using fraudulently obtained information. He showed the bank statements where withdrawals ranging from $400 to $1,200 were visible, all made by Sophia. In total, they have stolen $7,850 from Mrs. Elena's accounts. That money was for household expenses, Miguel protested. We were paying for groceries and utilities. That's a lie, I replied. I was still paying all my house bills with my pension. That money you stole was for your personal luxuries. I saw you buying designer clothes, going to expensive restaurants, while you told me we had to economize because times were difficult. The attorney continued to expose every detail of their criminal plan. We also have evidence that you contacted the administrator of the Golden Years facility and paid a $1,500 registration fee to secure a spot for Mrs. Elena, all without her knowledge or consent. He showed the payment receipt and the admission documents they had signed behind my back. You planned to take her this coming Thursday, telling her it was a routine medical appointment. It was for your own good, Mama, Sophia insisted desperately. You were becoming so absent-minded. Sometimes you got disoriented. Enough with the lies, I finally exploded, losing the composure I had maintained throughout the confrontation. I have never been disoriented. You invented those stories to justify your plan. I still manage my own finances, prepare my own meals, maintain my own house, and even support you financially when you ask me. I addressed Sophia directly, looking her in the eyes. You know what hurts the most, sweetheart? It's not that you wanted to steal my house. It's not that you planned to institutionalize me against my will. What hurts the most is that for all these months, while I embraced you and told you how much I loved you, you were calculating how much money you were going to make from my death." Sophia completely broke down and began to cry hysterically. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. We were desperate for money. We had so many debts. We didn't know what to do." "Desperation doesn't justify betrayal," I told her firmly. "If you needed money, you could have asked me, honestly. My entire life I have given you everything I have, but instead of trusting my love, you decided to steal from me and destroy me." The police officer approached with handcuffs in his hand. "Mrs. Rodriguez, do you wish to proceed with the arrests?" I looked at my daughter, who was crying inconsolably, and for a moment I felt a pang of maternal pain. But then I remembered her words in the audio, her coldness in planning my destruction, her laughter when talking about my death. "Yes, officer," I replied in a firm voice. "Proceed with the arrests." Seeing my own daughter being handcuffed in my living room was one of the most painful images I had experienced in my 64 years of life. But it was also the moment I realized I had regained my dignity and my personal power, after months of feeling like a helpless victim. "Mama, please," Sophia yelled at me as the officer led her toward the door. "You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm the only thing you have in this world." Her words echoed in my mind with bitter irony. She had been the one who decided I had no place in her world. Miguel, on the other hand, looked at me with pure hatred that chilled my blood. "This isn't over, you crazy old lady," he whispered as he passed by me. "You're going to pay for ruining our lives." Those words didn't frighten me, but they confirmed that I had made the right decision by exposing them. After Sophia and Miguel were taken away, my house was left in an absolute silence I hadn't experienced in months. For the first time since they had come to stay temporarily, I could walk around my own house without feeling like I was being watched, judged, or manipulated. But that peace didn't last long. The next day, a campaign of terror began that showed me the lengths Sophia and Miguel were willing to go to get revenge on me. The first attack came through social media. Sophia had created a fake profile and had started posting terrible stories about me in local community groups on Facebook. "My mother has dementia and falsely accused us of theft," she wrote. "She's so confused that she doesn't recognize her own family. Please, if you see her alone on the street, call me, because she shouldn't be unsupervised." The posts included photos of me taken without my knowledge, where I appeared distracted or tired, which they had edited to make it look like I had mental health issues. The comments from strangers were devastating. "Poor woman, she looks very confused. How terrible for a mother to accuse her own children. They should seek professional help for her." Mrs. Carmen, my neighbor for a lifetime, came to my house worried after seeing those posts. "Elena, honey, are you okay? I saw some really disturbing things online about you and your daughter." I had to explain the whole situation to her, show her the evidence I had so she would understand that it was all a smear campaign. But the harassment escalated quickly. Phone calls started coming in at all hours of the day and night. Unknown voices insulted me, threatened me, and told me I was an unnatural mother who had destroyed her own family for money. "You're a miserable old woman," a female voice screamed at me at 2:30 in the morning. "I hope you die alone and abandoned." People I didn't know also started showing up at my house, supposedly concerned for my well-being. Fake social workers who said they had received reports that I was in danger. Aggressive salespeople who insisted on selling me security systems because a single old woman is very vulnerable. And even people who introduced themselves as distant relatives who had come to verify my mental state. Attorney Torres explained that all of this was part of a desperate legal strategy. "Mrs. Rodriguez, they're trying to create evidence that you really do have mental problems to discredit your testimony in court. It's a common tactic when the accused don't have solid legal defenses. But what hurt the most was when anonymous letters full of poison and resentment started arriving. "You're a failed mother," one of them said. "You raised a daughter who hates you so much she'd rather see you dead. Think about what you did wrong." Another letter was even crueler. "Your own children abandoned you because you're insufferable. No one will miss you when you die. The letters attacked not only my relationship with Sophia, but all the sacrifices I had made in my life. You worked as a cleaning lady your whole life. And for what? For your daughter to despise you. You were a fool who let herself be used. Every word was calculated to shatter my self-esteem and make me doubt the decisions I had made. One night, while reading one of those particularly vicious letters, I completely broke down. I sat on my kitchen floor, the same place where I had listened to the audio that changed my life, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my mother's death. What did I do wrong? I asked myself over and over. How could I have raised a daughter who hates me so much? For the first time since this legal battle began, I considered giving up. Maybe it would be easier to drop all the charges, forgive Sophia, and try to rebuild our relationship. Maybe I really had overreacted. Maybe they did love me in their own way, and I had misinterpreted their intentions. But just as I was about to call Attorney Torres to ask him to drop the lawsuit, I remembered something that completely changed my perspective. I got up from the floor and went to my room, where I kept all the most precious memories of my life in a small wooden box. I searched until I found what I needed, a letter my mother had written to me shortly before she died, when Sophia was 9 years old. "My dearest Elena," the letter said in my sick mother's shaky handwriting, "if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you, but I want you to know that I am very proud of the woman and mother you are. You raised Sophia with so much love and dedication that I am sure she will be a good woman who will honor you for life." I continued reading with tears in my eyes. But if things ever get difficult, if someone tries to hurt you or take advantage of your good heart, remember that you are stronger than you think. Don't allow anyone, not even your own daughter, to trample on your dignity. True love never seeks to destroy, never seeks to steal, never seeks to humiliate. The last lines of the letter gave me the strength I needed. Elena, you deserve respect. You deserve genuine love. You deserve to live your final years in peace and dignity. If someone can't give you that, then they don't deserve to have you in their life, no matter how much blood you share with them. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. My mother was right. True love doesn't destroy. It doesn't steal. It doesn't plan the death of a loved one as a financial opportunity. What Sophia felt for me was not love. It was economic convenience disguised as filial affection. The next day, I woke up with renewed determination. I called Attorney Torres and said, "Attorney, I want you to proceed with all the charges. I am not going to drop anything. I want this case to go all the way." "I'm glad to hear that, Mrs. Rodriguez," he replied, "because I have some important news. Sophia and Miguel are trying to reach an out-of-court settlement. They want to avoid a public trial at all costs." "What kind of settlement?" I asked. "They are willing to return all the money they stole, pay for damages, and commit to never contacting you again if you drop the criminal charges." I thought about that proposal carefully. On one hand, I would recover my money and get rid of their manipulations forever. On the other hand, they wouldn't face the full legal consequences of their actions. "Attorney," I finally said, "I accept the settlement, but with one additional condition. I want them to sign a full confession of everything they did, publicly admitting that I am mentally competent and that all their accusations about my mental health were false. And I want that confession to be published in the same places where they defamed me." "That's very intelligent, Mrs. Rodriguez. That will completely clear your reputation and prevent them from continuing the smear campaign." A week later, Sophia and Miguel signed the agreement. I recovered my $7,850 plus $18,000 more in damages. But more important than the money, I recovered my peace of mind and my dignity. The public confession was devastating for them, but liberating for me. We, Sofia Herrera and Miguel Santos, admit that we falsely accused Mrs. Elena of having mental problems. We admit that we planned to steal her property and that we created fraudulent documents to declare her incompetent. Mrs. Elena is in perfect mental condition, and we invented those stories to justify our criminal actions. That day, exactly 1 month after hearing the audio that changed my life, I realized that I had achieved something that seemed impossible. I had defeated those who tried to destroy me, and I had done it with intelligence, dignity, and by always sticking to the law. But my story wasn't over yet. I had a new life to build, and I knew exactly how I wanted to live it. With the legal agreement signed and my reputation completely restored, the time came to make the most important decisions of my new life. I was no longer the naive Elena who had allowed her kindness to be abused for decades. I was a 64-year-old woman who had learned that true strength doesn't come from enduring abuse, but from defending yourself with intelligence and dignity. The first action I took was to completely change my will. I summoned Attorney Torres to my house and dictated my new final wishes. Attorney, I want all my assets, including this house and all my savings, to be donated to the Silver Hope Foundation, which helps senior citizens abandoned by their families. Are you completely sure about this decision, Mrs. Rodriguez? The attorney asked me. It's a considerable estate, approximately $530,000, including the house, your savings, and the compensations you received. Completely sure, I replied firmly. I want that money to help people who truly need it, not ungrateful children who see their parents as a financial investment. I also stipulated that if Sylvia tried to contest the will, she would automatically lose any right to receive even a penny. My second decision was to move. I no longer wanted to live in the house where I had been betrayed, where I had heard my own daughter plan my destruction. Attorney, I want to sell this property and buy something smaller, more in line with my current needs. In 4 weeks, I found the perfect place, a beautiful apartment in a residential complex for active seniors with gardens, recreation areas, and a community of people my age who valued independence and dignity. The apartment cost me $95,000, and with the $105,000 I had left from the sale, plus the legal compensations, I had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But my most satisfying revenge was completely legal and absolutely devastating for Sylvia and Miguel. It turns out that during my investigation with the attorney, we discovered that they had lied on their tax returns for the past 2 years. They had reported much lower incomes than their real ones to pay less in taxes, but at the same time, they had been living a lifestyle that didn't match those reported incomes. Mrs. Rodriguez, the attorney told me with a smile, I have information that might interest the tax authorities. He showed me evidence that Miguel had been working unreported side jobs and that Sylvia had been selling cosmetics online without declaring those earnings. Attorney, as a responsible citizen, I believe it is my duty to report any tax evasion I am aware of, I told him with a smile that reached my eyes. After all, we all must contribute fairly to the country's upkeep. A week later, the tax authorities initiated a full audit of Miguel and Sylvia. They discovered that they owed $26,000 in back taxes, plus penalties and interest, that brought the total debt to $41,000. But since they didn't have that money available, they had to sell their car, pawn their jewelry, and take out high-interest loans to avoid going to jail for tax evasion. My third revenge was professional. During the investigation, we also discovered that Diana, the cousin who worked at the registrar's office, hadn't been the only public employee involved in the fraud. There was an entire network of corruption that facilitated these kinds of thefts against seniors. With the help of Attorney Torres, we turned over all the information to the appropriate authorities. The investigation resulted in the dismissal of 8 public employees, including Diana, and the discovery of at least 15 similar cases to mine, where they had stolen properties from seniors using fake documents. When the scandal became public in the local newspapers, Sylvia and Miguel became the perfect example of unnatural children who abused their elderly parents. Their names and photographs appeared on the front page with headlines like "Family Betrayal That Shocked the City" and "Children Plan to Steal 64-year-old Mother's Home." But my most intelligent revenge was social. It turns out that Sylvia worked at a prestigious marketing firm where personal reputation was essential for professional growth. When her boss found out about the scandal through the newspapers, he called her into his office for a very uncomfortable conversation. "We cannot have employees involved in family fraud scandals," he told her. "Our company has a reputation to protect." Although he didn't fire her immediately, he demoted her to a less important position and made it very clear that she would have no opportunities for promotion in the near future. Miguel also faced consequences at his job. His supervisor, upon learning that he had participated in a plan to defraud his mother-in-law, told him, "If you are capable of stealing from your own family, how do we know you won't steal from us?" He lost all opportunities to get the promotion he was hoping for. But what satisfied me the most was seeing how their own friends and family rejected them. Miguel's brother refused to speak to him after finding out what they had planned to do to me. "How could you participate in something so cruel against an old woman who had only treated you with love?" he screamed at him during a family confrontation that was witnessed by several neighbors. Sophia's friends also gradually abandoned her. The mothers in her social circle didn't want to associate with someone who had so cruelly betrayed her own mother. "If she's capable of doing that to the woman who gave birth to her, what won't she be capable of doing to us?" they would comment among themselves. Even at the supermarket and pharmacy where they had known them for years, people would point and whisper behind their backs. They had become a public example of what not to do to elderly parents. Throughout this entire process, I never acted with hatred or a thirst for revenge. Every action I took was legal, ethical, and justified. I didn't lie about them. I didn't invent false accusations. I didn't threaten them or hurt them physically. I simply allowed the natural consequences of their own actions to run their course. 8 months after the day I heard that fateful audio, I ran into Sophia at the shopping center. She looked haggard, tired, and much older than her 36 years. When she saw me, she approached with tears in her eyes. "Mama," she said in a broken voice, "please forgive me. I understand you're angry, but we've already paid the price. We lost everything. Our credit is ruined. Miguel lost his promotion. I had to take a job with a lower salary. Don't you think that's punishment enough?" I looked her directly in the eyes, without hatred, but without weakness. "Sophia, I didn't punish you. The consequences of your actions punished you. You decided to plan my destruction. I just decided to defend myself." "But we're family," she pleaded. "Blood is blood, Mama. You can't abandon your only daughter. Blood doesn't give you the right to mistreat, steal from, or plan someone's death," I replied calmly. "For 36 years, I was your unconditional mother. For 4 months, you were my calculating executioner. You can't ask me to forget that just because you're now facing the consequences." "So, you're not going to forgive me?" she asked, crying. "I already forgave you, Sophia," I told her honestly. "Forgiving you was necessary for my own peace of mind. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing you to hurt me again. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Forgiving doesn't mean giving you another chance to destroy my life." I left her crying in that shopping center and walked away toward my new apartment where my new life awaited me. A life where I was no longer anyone's victim. Where I no longer had to pretend that abuse was love. Where I no longer had to sacrifice my dignity to maintain toxic relationships. For the first time in decades, I was completely free. A year after that encounter at the shopping center, my life had taken a path I never imagined possible. At 65 years old, I woke up that spring morning in my beautiful apartment with the sun filtering through the cream curtains that I had chosen myself, without anyone telling me they were too expensive or unnecessary. I made my coffee in the small but perfect kitchen for my needs, and I sat on my balcony to contemplate the gardens of the residential complex. In the distance, I could see other residents doing their morning exercises, tending to plants, or simply enjoying the tranquility. We were all seniors who had decided to live our final years with dignity and independence. "Good morning, Elena," greeted my neighbor Victoria, a 68-year-old woman who had become my best friend. "Ready for our yoga class today?" I smiled, remembering how I had started taking yoga classes at 65, something I never thought I would do. "More than ready, Victoria. These old bones still have a lot to give." During this year, I had discovered a version of myself that had been dormant for decades. Without the constant pressure to please Sophia, without the stress of walking on eggshells in my own house, I had blossomed like a flower that finally received sunlight. I had enrolled in pottery classes and discovered that I had a natural talent for creating vases. My pieces now decorated the walls of my apartment, and I had sold some at the local craft fair. "Mrs. Rodriguez," the fair organizer had told me, "your pottery conveys a serenity and wisdom that touches people's hearts." I had also joined the volunteer group at the Silver Hope Foundation, the same organization that would be the beneficiary of my inheritance. I worked 3 days a week helping other seniors who had been abandoned or mistreated by their families. Elena, Mrs. Isabel, and 79-year-old woman who had come to the foundation after her children had evicted her from her house, told me, "You understand our pain because you lived it firsthand." At the foundation, I had become a kind of unofficial counselor. People who arrived broken and hopeless found in my story an example that it was possible to recover, that it was possible to rebuild a dignified life after the most profound family betrayal. Mrs. Elena, Mr. Carlos, a 73-year-old man whose children had emptied his bank accounts, told me, "How did you manage to forgive and move on?" I had replied, "Mr. Carlos, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing them to hurt us again. Forgiving means freeing our heart from the poison of resentment so we can live in peace. But living in peace also means moving away from those who hurt us, even if they share our blood." My work at the foundation had given me a purpose I never thought I would have at this age. We had managed to help 52 seniors recover money stolen by their families. 28 had managed to reverse fraudulent documents that declared them incompetent, and 18 had found new safe homes after being evicted by their own children. But the most important thing I had discovered was my own self-worth. For 64 years, I had measured my value by how much I could give to others, how much I could sacrifice, how much pain I could endure in silence. Now I understood that my value as a person did not depend on being useful to others, but on being true to myself and respecting my own boundaries. As for Sylvia and Miguel, I occasionally received news of them through mutual acquaintances. They had had to move to a smaller, more economical apartment. Miguel had definitely lost his opportunities for promotion and now worked at a lower-paying job. Sylvia had to accept an additional part-time job to be able to pay off all their debts. But what I was told most was that their marriage was in crisis. When they no longer had the mother-in-law's house as a backup plan, they started blaming each other for the failure of their plan. Mrs. Carmen, my old neighbor, told me, "They are constantly fighting over who was to blame for everything being discovered." Interestingly, this didn't give me a vengeful satisfaction, but a deep sadness for the decisions they had made. They had destroyed not only their relationship with me, but also their own relationship with each other. Greed had been a poison that had contaminated everything it touched. 7 months ago, I had received a letter from Sylvia. I hadn't opened it immediately. It had taken me 2 days to decide if I wanted to read what she had to say to me. Finally, I had opened it in the presence of Victoria, my neighbor, to have emotional support. "Dear Mama," the letter began, "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did to you. I've been going to therapy, and now I understand that my actions were unforgivable. I am not writing to ask for your forgiveness or to be back in your life. I just want you to know that I finally understand the harm I caused you." The letter continued. "The therapist helped me understand that my actions were not born of financial desperation, but of a selfish mindset that I had developed over the years. I got so used to receiving your unconditional help that I stopped seeing you as a person with rights and feelings and started seeing you as a resource that I could exploit. Now I understand that you deserved respect, genuine affection, and care in your golden years. Instead, I gave you manipulation, lies, and betrayal. I have lost the best mother in the world because of my own greed and stupidity." The letter ended with a phrase that made me cry. "I don't expect your forgiveness, Mama, because I know I don't deserve it. I just hope you are happy and that you find the peace you always deserved. With love and eternal regret, Sylvia." That letter had taken me weeks to process emotionally. On one hand, I was happy to know that Sylvia finally understood the magnitude of what she had done. On the other hand, it was already too late to rebuild our relationship. Some wounds, even if they can heal, leave scars that are too deep to allow things to go back to how they were before. I had responded with a brief but honest letter. "Sylvia, I accept your apology, and I'm glad to know you're seeking professional help. I forgive you because holding a grudge would harm me. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean I can trust you again. I wish you the best in your life, but my life is now at peace without you. With affection, but without a way back, your mother. On the quiet nights in my new home, I often reflected on the lessons this experience had taught me. The most important was that true love never seeks to destroy or appropriate the loved one. True love respects, protects, and seeks the well-being of the other without expecting anything in return. I had also learned that setting boundaries is not cruelty but emotional survival. For decades, I had confused extreme sacrifice with maternal love, when in reality, I had been teaching Sophia that she could mistreat me without consequences. Sometimes, I had told the women in the Foundation support group, the greatest inheritance we can leave our children is not money or property, but the example that all people, including their mothers, deserve respect and dignity. That spring morning, as I finished my coffee on the balcony, I received a call from Attorney Torres. Mrs. Rodriguez, I have some news that might interest you. I've just been contacted because 4 other cases similar to yours have come to light. The affected families want you to share your experience on how to deal with these kinds of situations. Of course, attorney, I replied without hesitation. If my story can help other people defend themselves, I am completely willing to share it. That afternoon, as I worked on a ceramic bowl on my pottery wheel, I reflected on the incredible journey I had been on for the past 20 months. I had started as a silent victim and had become an empowered survivor who now helped others find their own strength. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Victoria inviting me to dinner at the new Italian restaurant downtown. "Elena, let's go celebrate life," she said with her contagious enthusiasm. As I got ready to go out, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a completely different woman from the one I had been 2 years ago. My eyes shone with a confidence I had never had before. My posture was upright and proud, and my smile was genuine and free of emotional burdens. "Elena," I said to myself in the mirror, "at 65 years old, you finally learned that your life belongs only to you, and that you deserve to live it with dignity, joy, and peace." That night, having dinner with my new chosen family instead of my toxic biological family, sex 0.05. We toasted to new beginnings, to the wisdom that comes with age, and to the courage to defend what is right regardless of the consequences. And as I raised my glass of wine, I thought of all the women who at that moment were suffering from the mistreatment of their own families, believing they had no options, that they had to endure abuse for the sake of family love. What did you think about the story, guys? Let me know in the comments. If you liked it, you can support me by subscribing. It means more than you think. And if you want more life stories like this, click one of the videos on screen to watch. I promise you'll love it. Bye!